Greetings to you all. Today, in this video, we discuss Dickinson's poem Because I Could Not Stop for Death. Let us have a critical analysis of the poem. Before that, let us know something about the poet Emily Elizabeth Dickinson. She was born on December 10, 1830 and died on May 15, 1886. She was an American poet. She was little known during her life. She has since been regarded as one of the most important figures in American poetry. Dickinson never married, and most friendship between her and others depended entirely upon correspondence. She was a very prolific writer. Her only publications during her lifetime were 10 of her nearly 1,800 poems and one letter. Now over to the poem, Because I Could Not Stop for Death. This poem, Because I Could Not Stop for Death, is an exploration of both the inevitability of death and the uncertainties that surrounded what happens when people actually die. In the poem, a woman takes a ride with a personified death in his carriage, by all likelihood heading towards her place in the afterlife. The poem's matter-of-fact tone, which underplays the fantastical nature of what is happening, quickly establishes this journey as something beyond the speaker's control. It is not clear if the speaker is already dead or she is traveling towards death. Either way, her death is presented as something natural, strange, and inescapable and inevitable. Indeed, the poem's opening lines make this clear. The speaker herself couldn't stop for death, and not many people would, but death has very intention of stopping for her. Notably, death here is presented as something of a gentleman, kindly stopping his carriage so that the speaker can climb in. This suggests a certain comfort with, or at least acceptance of dying on the part of the speaker, even as what this process actually entails remains mysterious. Also, in the carriage, there was immortality. It is not clear if this is another personified figure, a kind of chaperone or something more abstract in nature. But the presence of immortality does speak to one of the humanity's deepest questions. What happens to people when they die? Immortality or eternity is highly ambiguous here. Its presence could support the Christian idea of the afterlife, which some critics feel runs throughout Dickens' poems. Immortality could be somewhat ironic, hinting at the permanent nothingness that abides in death. Either way, such is the eternal inevitability of death that he himself in no haste. That is, he doesn't need to hurry to make death happen because it is an automatic fact of life. In fact, the whole journey has the air of unhurried purpose, as though reaching the destination is a given and therefore rushing is unnecessary. The carriage stops by a school, fields, and perhaps even the speaker's own grave. The speaker's own grave, there is a reference about in stanza 5. So these seem to represent the different stages of life, starting from childhood and proceeding like the journey itself to the inevitable final destination. School refers to the childhood, then field refers to the maturity, youth period, and again sunset refers to the old age or even death. To underscore the poem's sense of awe surrounding the mysteries of death, the final stanza is filled with ambiguity and contradiction. The speaker explains that the carriage passed these sites centuries ago, but that the entire time that has elapsed also feels shorter than a day. In the grand scheme of eternity, hundreds of years might indeed feel like a blip on the radar. This contradiction thus highlights the difficulty of imagining eternity or immortality. Life is measured by time. Moving through different stages as people age, people sense the story of their lives unfolding as time goes on. But in death, the perception of time, indeed, all perception ceases to exist. Unless, of course, there is an afterlife, an idea which the poem seems open to but inconclusive about. Indeed, it's a large part of his inconclusiveness that makes the poem so powerful. On the one hand, death's kind and calm treatment of the woman could signal the comfort of a Christian afterlife, entrance to heaven, and an eternity of God's presence. But more darkly, the way that the poem plays with the ideas of immortality and eternity can also be read as something more than the dark nothingness of death itself, that is life. When it's gone good. So, in addition to looking at the mysteries of death, because I could not stop for death, comments on the nature of life. During the speaker's journey, the personified death, the points that they pass along the way seem charged with significance. So, the journey format of the poem mimics the way that life itself is a journey from birth to death, from the arrival of new life to its absence. The observation that the speaker makes along this journey seem to reinforce the idea that life and death are cyclical balance. In a way, the poem suggests life is not possible without death. Firstly, though it is not an explicitly stated simple in the poem, it is important to bear in mind that this journey taken with the aid of wheels. The carriage's wheels are circular, gently hinting at the circular transformation from nothingness to life to nothingness once more. While the first two stanzas set up the journey itself, it is from the third onwards, the speaker starts to notice the environment around her as it passes. The first point along the way is a school where the children strive at their recess in their wing. The image of children playing is very important, symbolizing the continuation of life even after the speaker is no longer around to witness it. The verb strive seems to suggest human effort, hinting at the way people strive to keep living even in the knowledge of inevitable death. Children are also playing in a ring, the circular nature of which further reflects the cycle of life and death. Soon after, the traveling party goes by the field. While the sun is setting, representing the speaker's death, The grazing grain seems to be growing strong. This is another example of the continuation of life after death. Every year, crops are harvested, representing death, and then are replanted or regrown, enacting the shift from life into death back again. Then the penultimate stanza, the speaker seems to see her own grave. There's a sense here that the reality of death has arrived, and the speaker will no longer be around to witness children playing or crops growing. But because of the other sides that have been mentioned earlier, the grave visit doesn't really feel as significant as one might expect. The speaker herself will, of course, soon be gone, but the poem is charged with the knowledge that everything else will carry on as before. Perhaps her death even makes way for the continuation of life in her absence, for new children to strive, just as harvested grain makes way for new crops. The poem suggests an independence between life and death. Both seem like necessary parts of the world as presented in the poem, even if their relationship is by its nature perplexing and intriguing. Dickinson manages to put into images the complexity of these thoughts and intentionally leaves such questions unresolved for the reader to consider. And the poem comprises of 6 stanzas, and it is divided into sets of 4 lines known as quatrains. The first and third lines are made up of 4 sets of 2 beats, or a total of 8 syllables. The first of these beats is unstressed and the second is stressed. This is known as iambic pentameter. And the second and fourth lines also use iambs, or unstressed and stressed beats. But there are only 3 sets of 2 beats in each line. This is known as iambic trimeter. That's all about the poem. Hope you have understood. Thank you.